Topping today's news, May 10th, dubbed HMBS Flamingo Remembrance Day. The former Prime Minister reflects on COVID post-pandemic. Long Island MP Adrian Gibson in court today, and police continue to take guns off of our streets. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jareno Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Therefore, be it resolved that this House approves the designation of the 10th day of May and each year as National HMBS Flamingo Remembrance Day.
Today, parliamentarians debated a resolution to make May 10th a National Day of Remembrance. Members commemorated the tragedy of HMBS Flamingo that occurred 43 years ago and saw the bravery and ultimate sacrifice of 19 Marines, including able seaman Fenric Stirrup, Marine seaman Austin Smith, Marine seaman David Tucker, and Marine seaman Edward Williams. Prime Minister Philip Davis, in moving the resolution, led off the debate, noting that the commemoration of this day as National HMBS Flamingo Remembrance Day is all in memory of our fallen soldiers.
Madam Speaker, the incident triggered an uproar throughout the Bahamas, which both infuriated and united our young nation, eager to defend its territorial sovereignty. The Cuban fishermen were fined $95,000 for illegal fishing. But our nation's father, Sir Lyndon Pindling, pursued justice further. Sir Lyndon condemned the attack as a deliberate act of aggression, lodged an official complaint with the UN Security Council, and pledged to strengthen our defense force, which has indeed seen consistent increases in budgetary allocation.
Minister of National Security Wayne Monroe, whose portfolio includes the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, spoke to the importance of sovereignty.
Madam Speaker, when one understands that the life of duty of a soldier is not to reason why, but to do and die, one must understand that not all of us have that mettle. I confess freely that I do not. And I confess it often to the personnel of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Thus my admiration for those who do. We are on the road to 50. But what does that mean without status? We can say we are a nation. We cannot be nation until we are sovereign. Our forebears sought the wisdom of establishing this force to do just that, to protect our sovereignty.
Speaking as leader of the opposition, Michael Pintard joins with the government in remembrance of those making the ultimate sacrifice.
These young men, ripped from us and their families, left unceremoniously. Their families left unceremoniously to mourn their untimely and most violent passing. We are obligated, Madam Speaker, to salute them for the service to our beloved country. And not just them, Madam Speaker, and those that survived, but others who have passed during a period where they did not receive the recognition that some are fortunately alive to now receive.
Flags flew at half-mast today in all government buildings, while schools participated in their Remembrance Day services across the country. Minister of Education Glennis Hannah Martin says it is the Ministry of Education's duty to ensure that those in the next generation understand the meaning of the HMBS Flamingo incident and that they understand the value of our nationhood and protect it. As the World Health Organization officially announced the COVID-19 pandemic as being over, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis reflects on that period and lessons learned. Speaking to members of Kiwanis International Club of Pinewood, the former Prime Minister wished to avoid politics, focusing on working with Bahamians in what he described as the worst public health crisis of our lifetime. He also commended the church's contribution during that period.
One of the big lessons in the crisis is to get the best people and experts possible from both the public and the private sector. I also wish to thank those in the religious community who lent their moral support, encouragement, and facilities during the rollout of the vaccine. And because of the role of the church in society, it is essential to seek the support of the religious community in encouraging their communities of faith in the promotion of the common good.
Dr. Minnis also spoke on the unpredictable nature of the virus, speaking of its threat to health worldwide and vulnerabilities exposed. He says scars left by COVID-19 should serve as a reminder of the potential for new viruses to emerge, along with devastating consequences.
One of the greatest tragedies of COVID-19 is that it didn't have to be that way. We have the tools and technologies to prepare for pandemic better, detect them earlier, respond to them faster, and communicate their impact. But globally, a lack of coordination, lack of equity, and lack of solidarity meant that those tools were not used as effectively as they could have been. We went on. We must promise ourselves and our children and grandchildren that we will never, ever make those mistakes again.
Citing data from the World Health Organization, the former Prime Minister noted that there were 765 million confirmed COVID-19 cases, with 7 million people dying from the virus, although both statistics are thought to be much higher. In the meantime, Dr. Minnis reminded that although the pandemic is over, COVID remains a significant threat. The corruption trial for a member of Parliament for Long Island and former executive chairman of the Water and Sewage Corporation, Adrian Gibson, continued today before Justice Cheryl Grant Thompson. Gibson's lawyer, Muriel DeSeal, filed a constitutional motion this morning asserting that his client's constitutional rights have been breached after the key witness, Mr. Gibson's ex-wife, Alexandria Mackey, filed 2 applications to give a virtual testimony via video link rather than appearing in person for trial. According to the Evidence Amendment Bill of 2011, the use of live television link can only be used when the witness is on an island other than the island in which the proceedings are being held. The witness is outside of the Bahamas, or the witness is a child, an elderly, or ill, or otherwise considered vulnerable. Mr. Ducille said Ms. Mackey is capable of traveling for the trial because of her recent travels in April of this year, and she also made no mention of any harassment or abuse from the accused to the authorities. Acting Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions Cordell Frazier says the witness has grounds for the application of a virtual trial because she is outside of the country. She claims to have been brutally attacked by Gibson on December 22nd, 2021, and her immigration status is still in question. The court will rule on both applications tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Adrian Gibson is facing an array of corruption charges in connection with his tenure as executive chairman of the Water and Sewage Corporation during the Minnis administration. After attending the festivities and government business activities surrounding the coronation of King Charles in London, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Public Service, Fred Mitchell, flew to Rome, Italy, where he met with Bahamian lawyers who are tackling legal issues in the death of Bahamian students R.A. Ramsey and Blair Johnson 4 years ago. Earlier today, the Foreign Affairs Minister gave this update on the tragic events that left both Bahamian families devastated.
Yesterday, I was able to meet in Rome with the lawyers for the Bahamas government in Rome, who represent us in the case of the death of Foreign Service Officer Al Ray Ramsey and Blair John, a PhD student, both Bahamians who died in mysterious circumstances in Turin, Italy in 2019. It is an obligation that I take very seriously on behalf of our deceased brothers and the families of those brothers. We have an obligation to do all that we can to satisfy ourselves as to how they lost their lives. We will keep the public advised.
Ramsey, who was 29 years old at the time of his death, was a Foreign Service officer at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who was on study leave, while Johnson was a PhD candidate who was studying in Halifax, Canada. Ramsey was found floating in the Po River in Turin, Italy on Wednesday, June 5, 2019, and less than 24 hours later, Italian authorities reported that the lifeless body of John, who was reported earlier to be missing, was also found floating in the same river. Italian authorities initially claimed Ramsey's death was an accident, but family members believe both men were murdered. Royal Caribbean International, RCI, announcing it will hold an additional public consultation in conjunction with the Bahamas Department of Environmental Planning and Protection, DEPP, on June 8th, providing the community another opportunity to ask questions regarding its $100 million beach club development project on the western end of Paradise Island. Since the government announced back in March that it has granted approval for the cruise line to go ahead with its beach club project, there has been backlash, criticism, and concerns, particularly from environmentalists who question the environmental impact. RCI, in a statement, says now that it has received approval in principle from the National Economic Council, subject to appropriate environmental review, it is eager to address the environmental questions raised by the local community, with further details regarding the public consultation meeting to be announced in the coming days. RCI further notes that once the public consultation period has closed in line with the DEPP process, it will publish a detailed environmental management plan that outlines how the company will thoughtfully restore the long neglected stretch of land on Paradise Island. Crafted in close collaboration with government, the Royal Caribbean Beach Club will feature an unprecedented public-private partnership in which Bahamians will be invited to own up to 49% equity. RCI notes that the new project also will create opportunities for local businesses and entrepreneurs to manage the vast majority of experiences as well as hundreds of jobs for Bahamians across its construction phase and long-term operation. And finally, in this segment, as police work daily to take illegal firearms off the streets, 5 people were arrested early Tuesday morning after a high-powered weapon was found in a home on Ludlow Street off Mount Royal Avenue. According to information from police, sometime around 1:15 a.m., officers attached to the Anti-Gang and Firearms Investigation Task Force, acting on intelligence, went to the home and on arrival made a search of the home. When a high-powered weapon was found, the high-powered weapon also contained a quantity of ammunition. As a result, 5 residents were taken into police custody. Investigations continue into this matter. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.